I had always heard stories about the old house on the hill. Locals whispered tales of its dark past, claiming it was haunted. My curiosity got the best of me one summer, and I decided to spend a night there despite my friends' warnings. The moon hung low in the night sky as I approached the decaying mansion. It was a massive, eerie structure that seemed to loom over the landscape. The wind whispered through the trees, creating a haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, and the walls were adorned with faded family portraits. As I explored, I noticed a painting of a beautiful woman with jet-black hair and piercing green eyes. Her eyes seemed to follow me, as if she were still alive, trapped in the frame. I made my way to the grand staircase, and that's when I heard it, the faintest whisper, like someone calling my name. I froze, heart pounding, convinced it was just my imagination. But then I heard it again, clearer this time. "Come closer," the voice beckoned. Hesitantly, I climbed the stairs, drawn by an irresistible force. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. "Join us," they pleaded. It was as if the very walls of the house were speaking to me. I entered a room at the end of the hallway, and there, in the dim light, I saw them. Ghostly figures, swaying back and forth. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Their faces contorted in pain and anguish. They reached out to me, their ghostly fingers grazing my skin. "Help us," they moaned, their voices a chorus of despair. I couldn't tear my eyes away from them, couldn't move, as if I were trapped in a trance. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and the figures became more corporeal, more real. They were no longer translucent. They were flesh and blood. Their eyes were filled with tears, and their faces twisted in agony. I stumbled back, trying to escape, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside with them. They closed in on me, their fingers cold as ice, their voices a cacophony of sorrow. "Join us," they repeated, their grip tightening. In that moment, I understood the house's dark secret. These were the souls of those who had lived here, trapped for eternity, unable to move on. I felt their pain, their longing for release. With all the strength I could muster, I shouted, "I can't. I won't." The figures recoiled, their faces contorted in anger and frustration. The room shook, and the walls seemed to scream in agony. And then, with a deafening roar, they vanished, leaving me alone in the darkness. I stumbled out of the room and fled down the stairs, out of the house, and into the cool night air. The whispers still echoed in my mind, but I knew I had escaped the clutches of the haunted mansion. The news of the haunted house had spread like wildfire throughout the small village in the Philippines. It had been abandoned for decades, and tales of its malevolent spirits had driven most people away. But I was different. I was an artist, and I had heard rumors of a cursed painting hidden within its walls. With my sketchbook and pencils in hand, I ventured into the decaying mansion. The air was thick with an otherworldly chill as I explored the darkened rooms. Paintings and portraits adorned the walls, all covered in a layer of dust and cobwebs. But one painting stood out, a portrait of a young woman with a forlorn expression. Her eyes seemed to follow me, and her lips were frozen in a haunting smile. The details were exquisite, and I couldn't resist the urge to sketch her. I set up my easel and began to draw, completely absorbed in my work. Hours passed, and I lost track of time. It was only when I put the finishing touches on the sketch that I realized something was terribly wrong. The room had grown even colder, and the woman in the painting had come to life. She stepped out of the frame, her eyes fixed on me. I stumbled back in shock, dropping my sketchbook. "Who are you?" I stammered. She didn't answer, but instead extended her hand toward me. I watched in horror as the room around us faded away, and we were transported to a different time. A time when the house was alive with activity and the woman was very much real. She introduced herself as Isabella, and her story unfolded before me. She had been an artist too, centuries ago, and she had painted the very portrait I had sketched. But her talent had come at a price. She had made a deal with a malevolent spirit, trading her soul for artistic prowess. Isabella had been trapped in the cursed painting ever since, her spirit bound to the house. She told me that she could only escape if someone willingly took her place. Tears filled her eyes as she pleaded with me to set her free. I could feel her desperation, her longing for release, but I knew the consequences. If I agreed, I would be trapped in the painting, and she would be free to roam the world once more. It was a choice between my own freedom and an act of selflessness. I hesitated, torn between my passion for art and the fear of an eternity in captivity. But in the end, compassion won over ambition. With a heavy heart, I agreed to take her place. Isabella smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude, and she touched my hand. As she did, I felt a searing pain, and everything went dark. When I awoke, I was inside the painting, and Isabella was gone. I could see the world outside, but I was trapped in the frame, forever a part of the cursed painting. The old house in the Philippines had always fascinated me. It stood on the edge of the village, its dark history shrouded in mystery. Legends spoke of a piano that played on its own and a haunting melody that echoed through its empty halls. I had to see it for myself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the landscape, I made my way to the abandoned mansion. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding as I stepped inside. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the once grand furniture lay in ruins. I wandered deeper into the house, my footsteps echoing on the creaky wooden floors. And then I heard it, a faint, melancholic melody, like the soft notes of a piano drifting through the air. It sent a chill down my spine. Following the haunting tune, I found myself in a dimly lit room, where an ancient piano stood in the corner. The keys moved on their own, producing the mournful melody that filled the air. There was no one in sight, yet the piano played on, as if by ghostly hands. I approached the piano, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached out to touch the keys, a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the candles that had been lit on the nearby table. The darkness enveloped me, and the melody grew louder, more haunting. And then she appeared, a young woman, in a flowing white dress, her ebony hair cascading down her back. She sat at the piano, her fingers dancing over the keys. Her eyes, however, were empty, devoid of life. I watched in awe as she played, her fingers moving with a grace and precision that seemed otherworldly. It was a melody of sorrow and longing, a song of lost love and eternal despair. The notes hung in the air, suffocating me with their melancholy. Unable to tear my eyes away, I asked, "Who are you?" She turned her gaze towards me, and her voice was a soft whisper, like a distant echo. "I am Maria," she said. "I died in this house long ago, but my soul is bound to the piano. I can never leave." Her story unfolded before me. Maria had been a talented pianist in life, known throughout the village for her skill. But she had fallen in love with a man from a rival family, and their love had been forbidden. On the night they had planned to elope, tragedy had struck. Maria had died, and her spirit had become trapped in the piano, cursed to play her haunting melody for all eternity. Tears welled in her empty eyes as she told me her tale. She begged me to release her from her eternal torment, to free her soul from the piano's grasp. But there was a catch. I would have to take her place, but there was a catch, becoming the new guardian of the haunted melody. I hesitated, torn between the desire to help Maria and the fear of becoming a prisoner of the piano. But as I looked into her sorrowful eyes, I knew I couldn't leave her to suffer alone. With a heavy heart, I agreed to take her place. Maria's face lit up with a sad, grateful smile, and she reached out to touch my hand. As her cold fingers made contact with mine, a blinding light enveloped me, and the world around me faded away. When I awoke, I found myself seated at the piano, my fingers already playing the haunting melody. Maria was gone, but her presence lingered in the air. I had become the new guardian of the haunted melody, destined to play it for all eternity, a prisoner of the piano's curse.